Welcome everybody to Chat Interactive. And tonight we're talking to the last backpack generation, Zachary Walker, who's going to be talking, who has a whole series on Edchat Interactive about digital tools to enhance your class. And tonight he's going to be talking about using Twitter a little bit for PD, well, you can use it a lot for PD, but he's going to be talking a little bit about PD, but mostly how to use Twitter in your classroom. Some of you were here the last time Zachary talked, and you may be familiar with his book, his first book, Teaching the Last Backpack Generation. He advises UNESCO, he researches, and he speaks around the world, and he's speaking around the world tonight on Shindig. Zach, so welcome back.
Hello, everybody.
So, and then just one question. You were just in, and I don't even know how you pronounce it, Timor?
Timor,
Right.
yeah, I was in Timor last week.
And so I was doing a little research after you told me you were in Timor, and it's rated like in the lowest 10 nations in terms of connectivity. So were you there like raising the bar, or were you there just going off the grid?
I actually took a group of high school sophomores there, and Timor's only about 14 years old, so it's a developing country. So we were looking at all kinds of issues, from infrastructure for things like not even connectivity, but roads, to tourism. We did some hiking, we did some snorkeling. We met with the ambassador from the U.S. We met with the chief of staff of Timor, his president. So it was a kind of a full experience. But yes, connection can be difficult in certain places.
Yeah. So do you want me to? I can bring myself down and bring your slides up if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm ready to go if everyone else is.
Okay, here we go.
And while he's pulling the slides up, a couple of things about the webinar here. Just so you know, Robin, at the end I will be going through kind of getting started with Twitter tips. If you've never used Twitter before, that's okay. Most of the audience has, and so I'm not going to go through step by step how to create an account and how to send a tweet or anything like that. But there's lots of YouTube videos, lots of places you can go for that. But at the end, I will be giving some getting started just if you are a new user to Twitter. You will be getting the slides at the end. So that's always a good thing, right, to get the slides. As well as Mitch mentioned, there is a recording of this. And then we'll have some time for some questions. So you can feel free to kind of put up questions throughout, but at the end we will try to allow some time for questions as well. Final thing to remember is that everyone is on camera for the most part. So I always have to remind myself of this so I don't do anything embarrassing. So hopefully none of you will do anything embarrassing either. And if you do, hopefully at least we get it screen captured. All right, so again, the kind of the format that we're going to go through is I'm going to hit a few things on PD right at the start, and then we're just going to go through very practical strategies. The book that mentioned this one right here, essentially working around the world with teachers, I started collecting all these amazing strategies for lots of things. We've got some upcoming webinars on photos, videos, back channel discussions. And so what I did is I put them all together and said, I need to kind of collate these for my own use in the classroom, but also for, when I work with other teachers as well. So that's kind of what this is based on. So everything that we go through is something that other teachers are doing. They're not kind of pie in the sky ideas. These are things that other teachers around the world are actually doing. So Brooke, before we go any further though, if we could just move to the next slide real quick. On your device, I'm going to have you go to govote.at. If you can, and you can do it on your phone, wherever you have an internet connection, which all of you do, open up a separate browser or whatever. If you could go to govote.at, I just want to get a quick idea. Go to govote.at and then enter the code 3618. Now, when you do that, it's going to ask you that very simple question, do you have an active Twitter account? And if you could just let me know if you do have an active Twitter account. Now, you can't see this because that's just a screenshot, but what I'm doing on my end is I'm getting real-time results. So I'm assuming that most of you do, and that's why you're here. I've got a bunch of votes coming in, and all of them are yes at this point. And I'm not going to talk about this tool. This is another webinar that I've done before on polling. But if you haven't used polling before, this is a tool called Mentimeter. And so right now, we've only got two people who don't have Twitter accounts, and it seems like the majority of you do. Again, for those two who don't, please don't worry about it. They're easy to establish and they're very user-friendly. Okay, so what we're going to focus on is how to use it in class. If you need additional support on how to actually set it up and get it going, you can feel free to contact me or go to my best friend, Uncle YouTube. Uncle YouTube has lots of good instructions for all of us. So I go there quite frequently for tutorials. So, okay, we'll keep moving now. What we are going to do is remember, if you are on Twitter, okay, the hashtag that we are going to be using today is LBP. So if you have conversations, questions, concerns, ideas, whatever, feel free to go to LBP and just hashtag those, and I'll be keeping an eye on that account throughout. Okay, so next slide. There's a couple of different ways to use Twitter. The majority of teachers right now are using it for professional development. I know many of you are using it for that. Again, I want to hit real quickly on that, and then we're going to get into the classroom piece. So next slide, please. As you can see, what has happened in education, and oftentimes we teachers are behind the curve, and there's been a lot of research on this when it comes to any kind of new technology. But what we are seeing is that Twitter is becoming the place to go for professional development. There's lots of ways to do that. Next slide, please. And one of the ways that you can do is to start with by going here. This is a site called Twitter for Teachers. And this was a wiki that was put together a few years ago. Now, again, you're going to get these slides, so don't feel like you have to write everything down or screenshot everything, because you will be getting these. If you go to twitterforteachers.pbworks.com and keep moving, please, Mitch, if you don't mind. What you will see there is a list, literally, of subjects. So art, special education, leadership, technology, anything that you could want, PE, math, science, obviously. And then I think on the next slide, I actually picked geography. And so what you do is once you go into whatever you teach, it gives you a list of teachers to follow. And what these teachers, send out via Twitter is not necessarily what they ate for lunch or, what movie they saw. What they're sending out is, hey, here's a strategy I used in class, or here's a resource, or check out this video. This is great for this. And I think that that's really, really important, that we're tapping into each other. We as teachers tend to get into silos, and Twitter has really been a great way of coming together. Now, this slide here these are some names maybe to follow with that are not subject specific. And again, please don't feel pressured to follow any of these people, but if you want to, Tom Whitby does a lot with policy and kind of forward thinking education. Edutopia sends out anything and everything. Richard Burns sends out tech tools, and they're always free, which is nice. Tracy sends out kind of big picture issues about education and technology. Mitch is just fun, and he's a nice guy, so we like to follow him. And then me, I send out usually one thing a day, one practical tool per day, and then I'll send out various thoughts, ideas, inspirations, etc. So those are some people to start with. The other thing to follow is Edchats. I'm sure that everyone's heard about that. It's a chat if it has a hashtag, essentially. And there's lots of Edchats out there. You're going to see on these next couple of slides here, as we go through, there are literally tons and tons and tons of chats. And when you go to a chat, that's what it looks like. It is essentially, you can see where those arrows are there. That is what a chat looks like, because they put in this chat, for example, the BYOD chat. And so that's, if you've not used a chat before, if you go on Twitter and you simply search hashtag BYOD chat, you would get a whole chat about bring your own device to school. And they have these for math, science, anything like that. So if you're trying to find good chats, in the next slide, you're going to see a list of some of them. Here's some of them that are out there. Again, do not feel like you have to write these down, okay? You're going to get all this later. The next slide, there's more list. And then finally, on the next slide, this is the great place to go. This is the Edchat calendar. So these are all chats that are daily, that it will give you a full list. And if you look at the arrow there, right now I've got the monthly chat pulled up, but it tells you exactly what time the chat is occurring. So no matter where you are, whether it's Texas, I know we've got people here from Spain, we've got people from Singapore, we've got people from Germany, We've got people from Brazil on this chat right now. No matter where you are, you can go to the Twitter, search these chats, and actually participate, but also look at the archives of those chats. And I think that that's a really critical piece of Twitter that that is very, very helpful. So that's how we do professional development. What I'd like you to do right now, please, is take a look at find a partner and think about one person or one chat that you want to follow. Okay, and just say, you don't have to give anything specific, but if you could follow people, would you follow a teacher? Would you follow a mathematician? Would you follow a museum? Would you follow a special educator? This is really just a chance for you to talk with a partner real quick and kind of get going before we get into these heavy strategies. All right, so let's take 3 minutes, meet up with someone, say hello, and just introduce yourself and start talking. All right, let's take 3 minutes to do that. Thanks.
Okay, it looks like Zach was part of a chat, but he's free now. So I'm going to bring Zach, I'm going to bring you back up. Okay, so you got to chat with a few people. What were some of the things that people brought up?
We were talking about just how some teachers unit in science and biology. So that's exciting. And then, I think like most people, probably just figuring out how this whole shindig thing works. So just kind of playing around, introducing themselves, so on and so forth. But I think we're ready to roll. So I think we're in good shape.
So we could do either. I can put the slides back up, or if you want to, we could ask for a volunteer to talk about some of the hashtags or people that they follow. It's up to you.
I think let's go with the slides now, and because I have so many strategies, and in the book there's about 100, but we're only going to get through a few today. But I do want to make sure that you all get practical strategies. So if you can see the cartoon here, one of the reasons that we start with Twitter is because our students are using it. And I love this little caricature here. Anyone following me on Twitter already knows what I did this summer. And I think that that's fairly accurate of our students. They're so engaged in social media. So how can we use that to really create powerful lessons? And when we talk about Twitter in the classroom, we're really talking about two different things. Us using it as teachers or having our students use it. So we're going to start with us using it. If you don't necessarily want to open it up to your students, I understand that completely. You don't feel comfortable with that. You just want to use it to give out information. Remember, if you're ever using it with classes, though, you definitely want to have a class hashtag. And you're going to want to create that for whatever it is. So it will literally be the hashtag or the number sign, and then Smith first period or Jones algebra or whatever it is. But you want to make sure that you create a unique user hashtag so that your class knows where to go to follow your information. All right, so let's rock. Some of the simplest ways that teachers are using Twitter is simply to send out monthly, weekly prompts, whether that be homework reminders or event reminders, or if you teach an extracurricular, things like, remember your papers are due next week, or practice on Thursday is moved to the Northfield, or remember our presentations are coming up, tell your parents to be there. We've got the school play, band competition, whatever it might be. A lot of teachers are using it just simply for prompts. So that is one simple way that we can start using Twitter. The next way that I really, really like in education, because as educators, we do a great job of reviewing lessons, but we don't often do a very good job of previewing lessons. And so I work with a few teachers who tweet out a clue, a hint, a brain teaser for the next day's lesson. And to give you one example of that, I work with a teacher who teaches history, and every day he tweets out some kind of teaser for next day. So one of the things that he'll sometimes tweet out is, one of the ones that he does that I love is, tomorrow in class you're going to tell us about the time you got in a fight with your best friend. And obviously the students are, why would he want to know that? And next day he introduces the US Civil War and talks about how friends were fighting against friends and how much did you really believe in that cause. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, remember tomorrow we're starting chapter 7. It can be a clue, a hint, a brain teaser, because oftentimes when our kids come into class, they're still out in the hall mentally talking about Justin Bieber or the dance or whatever is going on in their lives, and they come into class and boom, we hit them with information, and their minds aren't ready for that. But if they have an idea what's going to be coming up, they have something that they've been thinking about, they're much more prepared. And this is, again, just good solid pedagogy. So that's another way that we can start using Twitter in class. We as professionals should be following current events, following, especially in the U.S. election this year. But no matter where you are, who are the political figures? Who are the organizations? If you're an art teacher, are you following the New York Museum of Art? If you're a special educator, are you following the U.S. Office of Special Education? Are you following CEC? If you are a math teacher, are you following mathematicians or scientists or fill in the blank? But what happens when we follow those, then they update the class daily. New scientific discoveries, new things, new articles that came out that impact what we're talking about. And this is one of the big things that's important in education, is establishing relevance, right? We know that word. We've talked a lot about that word. If our kids don't understand why we're doing it, then why are we doing it? And one of the nice things about following Twitter is we can share those current events with our students immediately, and it establishes some relevance. And that's such a critical component to learning. So just following current events and then sharing that with your class. So other than that, what we'd like to do now is just in your little IM chat, if you scroll over your face, you will see the IM chat come up. What's one activity that your students could do using Twitter in class, or what's one thing that you could do as the teacher? We're just going to take 1 minute, literally 1 minute. So get those fingers working. Let's go to your IM chat and enter one thing that you could do or that you currently do in class. And just so you all are aware, I cannot see everybody's IM chat. I can only see people that are in my room. We have multiple rooms here. So one of the things that I want to know is, or I want you to understand, is if I don't respond to your IM group, it's not because I don't want to be there. It's the fact that I can't necessarily see everybody's interest. Christopher Miller, I see you have a question there. We'll talk about that at the end, okay? Christopher asks, how do teachers get students to follow their hashtags? Sometimes we run into apathy for us trying to do social networking. I think this is a critical point. And one of the things I always talk about with technology is when schools say, oh, well, we're putting stuff online. A boring lesson online is still boring, right? And so I think we really have to think about what we're giving out, and is it interesting? And I think that's critical. Now, there is going to be this, teen angst, especially, that they don't want to be a part of it. And you know what? That we can't control that. All we can do is give them every opportunity to be a part of it if they want. So I think that that it's a good point. One of the things that we have to do is we have to not make it just relevant. We do have to make it fun. So. Okay, a couple other ideas. We're going to keep moving here. We got some great stuff there. Reminders, teasers, etc. One thing that some teachers are doing is tweeting out a vocab word of the day. And again, this is not just language arts or ELL. As you all know, if you're a science teacher, there's a whole different vocabulary in science. There's a whole different vocabulary in math. So what could you tweet out per day or once a week to help students prompt them? And again, sometimes you could do it too. Right, you tweet out the definition and they respond with their hashtag saying what the word is, or you send out the word and they respond with their definition. Either one of these can be really, really good ways to get them engaged. Another thing that you can do is tweet out clues or details. So can you tweet out parts of a formula or a compound or a date in history or parts of a story, maybe a couple of characters from a novel, and have the students tweet back the rest of the item. This is, again, a way to engage them outside of class, but you don't have to necessarily do all the work. You give them a clue and it gets them to thinking about your content, your class outside of the actual physical building. I love clues and details. Another thing is, tweet out a quiz question based on your current lesson. So Christopher, to go back to what you were saying about apathy, one of the things that we can do is say, I'm going to tweet out every day, I'm going to tweet out one question that's going to be on one of your assessments. And so now they have, they have a real reason to follow it because they want to get those assessment questions. And I think this is a really nice way for you to keep track with assessment as we kind of go through and say, okay, this is what I taught, what's a good question. As we continue to move forward, another thing you can do is partner up. Partner up with another classroom. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be at your school, but can you partner with the teacher at another school? Or if you have two Algebra 1 sections, can you create a Twitter chat between them about a topic or about a book that you're reading? Or a support. I'm a special educator by trade. If you're a special educator, can you create a chat between bunches of students that have them support each other? And I think that this is something that we can do a little bit more of to make it kind of collaborative, so they're not just dealing with the same faces all year. They get to deal with people outside of their classroom. Now, if you want to partner with other classes, okay, this is a URL list. These are teachers from around the world that have gone in, and you can see we've got kindergarten teachers using it. We've got first grade teachers. You can go to this website, enter your classroom, and then other classrooms may contact you saying, hey, we want to be in touch with your class. And again, there's all kinds of things you can do, right? You can study the same content area, you could have discussions, you could do Skype sessions together, etc. But this is a nice place to go to start establishing some of these partnerships with other classes. So let's go back to your partners, please. Discuss with the partner, what's one thing we've talked about that you could start doing in class. Again, we're going to do this quick now. You got 2 minutes, so find somebody quick, partner up, snuggle up to them, and let's go 2 minutes. Let's share real quick. What's one thing we've talked about so far that you can start in class? All right, let's rock and roll, y'all.
So I'm going to bring Zachary up in a second, but I'm going to try an experiment here. And I'm going to share my screen a second because I've been following this LBP hashtag, and I'm going to see if I can get this to work. And slowly sharing. So there it is. And then let me shrink this and expand this for a second. And so you can see that this has been reasonably active. Jennifer has been tweeting, I've been tweeting, and Zachary's been tweeting. And this is basically how a lot of conferences keep a back channel going. So let me stop my screen share. I'm going to stop my broadcast, and then I'm going to bring Zach back up.
All right, thank you. All right, let's rock and roll still. Now, if you are on Twitter but you're not on right now, that's your fault. All right, get on Twitter so you can contribute to our discussion. But one of the things we're going to keep going here now is other ideas. So for teachers, student work. Can you take pictures of their projects? Can you take pictures of them presenting? Now, again, you want to make sure if you include a student in the photo that you have a digital release form. But what you can do is you can show off really great work that your students do and tweet that out. That makes them feel valuable. And if you have parents following your Twitter account, which I highly encourage you to share your account with parents, you can that gives them some validation of what's going on in your class. As we keep moving, you will see tweet out your learning objective. So what are you doing? What are you doing in class, and why is that important? Again, this is a good way for parents to keep up, but it's also a good way to kind of check ourselves to make sure that we are doing what we need to do. The next thing I really like here, if you go on field trips, tweet out pictures from the field trip. What are you learning? Why are you on this field trip? What are the comments? What did the speaker say? What quote can you tweet? So you can give real-time updates from field trips that you're on, or if you go off campus, or if you're at performances. It's a great way to keep your audience engaged and your students engaged with what you're doing, even if they're not actually there. Next thing, remember on Twitter, you can tweet out links. So if there's an interesting video or a news story, or if you have an upper level class and you have them working on journal articles, what can you tweet them in a link that says, hey, I saw this on the news. This is a fantastic video about what we were talking about. Or, hey, this is an article that just came out. How does this relate to what we talked about 3 weeks ago? Or, we just talked about osmosis yesterday. Look at this new scientific discovery. So I see someone yawning. I love that. I try not to be boring, but gosh darn it. So anyway, What can you tweet out link-wise? It's important. Another thing that I think is fun is a quote of the day. And this could be obviously an inspirational quote or something like that, but sometimes our kids say the darndest things, right? So what can you tweet out from your kids? And it can be something funny, which is great. It's great to put funny stuff out there too. It can be something serious. It could be a takeaway, an inspiration, whatever it might be. But what's one of the things that you can quote out from your kids? Another way is to interact with other professionals. Can you tweet book authors or publication companies or whatever? Oftentimes what you'll see is they will respond. If you say, we're a 10th grade class from, St. Paul, Minnesota, we're reading your book, we have a question on this, and so a lot of times they'll respond. So it's a nice way to interact, not just with authors, but other people that you might be studying. Here's another thing that some teachers do. Have your students or you yourself tweet out some project samples and ask for them input. Now, if you don't have a lot of followers, you may not get a lot of input, but again, if we go back to Edchats, right? If we go back to the chat features, you can tweet out a project sample, put the hashtag Edchat. Now you've got teachers from around the world that can look and say, hey, this is really good, or this is an idea how you could take it further, or I would scale it back a little bit. Have you thought about including this, etc.? So I think that's a really good way to kind of get interactive as well. And then finally, and this is something I'm really passionate about, use your Twitter account to provide positive feedback. We don't oftentimes give enough positive feedback. And oftentimes if we do it in class, one student hears it, or maybe your class of 15 hears it, or 25, whatever. But when we put it out there on Twitter and a parent hears it because they're following your Twitter account, and you had written, oh, fantastic discussion today in 5th period class. Now, what do parents do? They might ask their kid, hey, what did you guys talk about today? It sounds like you had a fantastic discussion. So I think that it's that's a really, really good way to think about how we can reach our kids and kind of build that relationship with them outside of class as well. Tweet out the really, really good positive stuff. So right now, what I'd like you to do is go on Twitter. I gave you a warning this was coming, right? Tweet out one idea so far from this presentation and use the hashtag LBP. Now, Jennifer, thank you. You've been doing a great job tweeting. I love that. But I would like to see, I'd like to see some other people on there as well. So we're going to take 1 minute here. Tweet out something that you've learned so far, something that you could do, and just throw the hashtag LBP on there, and we'll keep moving. All right. So take 1 minute, and we'll do that real quick, and then we're going to get in more to what our students can be doing. Okay. So how can our students be using Twitter? I am keeping an eye here on our chat, so hopefully I will see some real-time tweets coming through. Yeah, we could use Twitter to give positive feedback to our webinar leaders. So Mitch, I just want to give feedback to you. In fact, I'm going to write a little message right now saying how amazing Mitch is, because he runs these webinars all the time and he's really good. So I'm just going to put in hashtag LBP, and then I'm going to put in great job on the webinar at Mitch Weisberg. So everybody see how this is rocking now? This is what we do on Twitter. We communicate. So again, not a lot of people are tweeting right now, and that's okay. That's all right. We'll give you some time. We got to get those tweets coming through. But if you're on Twitter, you can at least see, if you search for the hashtag LBP, that we've got now a conversation that's going on outside of class. And Farron, I think it's Farron, thank you. Maggie, Alex, thank you so much. And now I can see what you're tweeting right now, and this could happen in your class as well. So what you've just seen right there is a back channel discussion on Twitter. And this is another way you can have a silent discussion in class, because we all know when we ask our students, what do you think about this? We have 4 to 5 students that dominate class. But oftentimes it's that quiet, shy girl in the back who has something really, really good to offer. Or it's the kid who, has dyslexia, who reads the prompts, but it takes him a little bit longer. He never gets the chance to answer because it took him a little bit longer to read the prompt. When we use a back channel like Twitter, they all have a chance to participate in the discussion. And that is really a critical feature of the back channel. So a lot of times we can use it, have students use it as a back channel. Now this next one I think is really critical, because one of the things we know for students when using Twitter is it is only 140 characters, right? Twitter is only 140 characters. But we know how important that skill set of condensing an idea is. There's some research out there that says it's actually one of the top 2 or 3 most important skills when you take a standardized test, is your ability to summarize and condense. So if you have your students condense the lesson, the main point, a theme, a chapter, a character into 140 characters, that's not only using social media, that's really good for the brain. And we're going to do this this activity a little bit in a second. But one of the things that I want you to think about is what are the kind of main topics that you could have your students condense into 140 characters. It's difficult, and so I think that that's pretty critical. So right now what I'd like you to do is think about this. We're going to practice this real quick. It's about 2 more slides or 3 more. It's the next green slide, Mitch. Summarize the current use of technology in your school. Administrators, teachers, students. Now you have to summarize all that use in 140 characters. Even if you're not on Twitter right now, jot it down on a piece of paper. See if you can summarize the use of technology in your school in 140 characters, and try not to just give a one-word answer, right? How are you actually using Twitter as a whole? Okay. So we'll go to Twitter, and again, I'm following this back channel in real time, so I see what people are going to be putting on here. But I want you to kind of see, when we think about this, it's tough to do, and you can think about, you know, your content area better than I do, obviously. But what are the things that you can have your students condense into a specific idea? So those are going to continue to come up on our hashtag as we continue to move forward. Another great thing that you can do on Twitter is, and we can go to the next slide, Mitch, if you can hear me there, a daily classroom journal. So every day students can journal about what they learned. And again, it may just be one tweet, right? What's 140 characters? How does it summarize your day? How does it summarize how you feel about your day? Right? We can also obviously do things like takeaways. You know, what's your one takeaway from the day? Put it on Twitter in 140 characters. But again, this idea of expressing yourself in 140 characters is not just you know, interesting or fun. It's actually fairly good. It's good for the brain. It makes the brain think in a different way. As we continue to move forward, could you create a lesson summary poem by having each student contribute 1 line? So essentially what you would do is you go around your class and you say, okay, you tweet the first line of the poem, you tweet the second line of the poem, you tweet the third line, all using one hashtag. So over the course of your class, if you take 10 minutes to do this at the end of the class, they summarize whatever it is you're talking about in the form of a poem or a paragraph, however you choose to do it. But every student has to contribute something to that. And this is a really nice way, again, bringing the class together, having students use Twitter to do these kinds of things. As we continue to move, not only do you follow you know, political figures, historical figures, etc., have your students follow these museums, historical figures, scientists. Give them a list of some of the best people to follow. And I think that this is a really good way for them to be able to kind of keep up, even if you're not there prompting them daily. Next thing, find pen pals in different locations, and especially if you are a language teacher, a social studies teacher, etc. You know, think about having a pen pal of a class that's trying to learn English that's in Spain, and you're trying to learn Spanish and you're here. Create pen pals via Twitter, and they can just tweet back and forth. So all you need to do is establish a relationship with a teacher in one of those countries, which is pretty easy to do, and then just connect with students and use a hashtag, right? So create a common hashtag that they use, and they communicate back and forth in different languages. So we're going to go back to our IM chat real quick. Next slide there. in your IM chat. And again, you can just find your IM chat online by simply scrolling over your face there. Put up one idea. What's one idea that you can use Twitter for that you're with your students? All right. So go ahead and put one idea there in the IM chat that you could use Twitter for with your students. Jennifer, you bring up a really interesting point about, our students feel like we might be using it to creep on them. I don't ever follow students. And we're going to talk about this at the end here in about 5 minutes. I've got a few more strategies I want to get through if we have time. But I don't ever follow students. So I tell them, I'm not going to follow you, ever. I'm going to create a hashtag that you can follow, and you're welcome to follow me. But I'm not going to follow my students. If they want to post something that has to do with class, they have to put the hashtag on there. And I do think that that's a really critical thing to think about. And I appreciate you bringing that up. So, all right, we're going to go back and keep moving here. Again, I may go just past an hour, and I hope that that's okay. If it's not, well, that's the beauty of webinars. You can just click by. But I hope you're finding this valuable, and we are going to keep moving. So as we continue to move, finding a study buddy. So find a partner class in your local community that's also studying the same topic, and go through the unit with a partner. And again, this could be individual partners that they do together, or you could find a class and have a separate hashtag. It looks like my slides just went off, so I'm going to keep moving. Descriptive writing. One of the teachers I work with has his students imagine that they're a damsel in distress and the Wolverine is coming to rescue them. And so what they have to do in 140 characters is give them all the details that Wolverine would need to find and rescue them. Let's go up a little bit, Mitch, please. Couple more. Keep going up. So that is another way, descriptive writing. And to take it a step further with that project, what the teacher does is he has them pick a place in a novel that they have to describe in 140 characters. So I'm a damsel in distress. You're coming to get me, Wolverine. This is where I'm at. I have 140 characters to describe that place. And again, this can be really, really good. Quiz questions. So instead of you giving out a quiz question or an assessment question, at the end of every lesson, a student actually has to send their quiz question into you. So now they make up the test, right? They make up the test. And this is, again, really, really important. And I know our slides are off right now, guys. I'm sorry about that. It's just the way that we're working right now. So yes, this is the one we're talking about. Have them send in a quiz question at the end of every lesson so that they get an idea and you get an idea what they learned. And so they end up making up their own assessments in some ways. Takeaways. We talked about this a little bit. The next one there, have your students tweet their big takeaway from the day. Now, when they do that with the hashtag, the nice thing is, as the teacher, what do I now know? I know what they took away from the day. And obviously, if we've been in a classroom, sometimes you teach a great lesson and you think, wow, that really went well, and they did not get at all what you expected them to get. But still, that's valuable information for me, because now I come in the next day, I know what all their takeaways were, and I know where I can start, what I can build on, what I might need to review. Okay, we are going to skip this green activity and keep moving. So how can you reach out to public figures? Can you reach out to politicians in your area? Again, it's pretty powerful if you have all your students writing one of the local politicians and asking them to come to school, or having them try to meet up with other people, leaders in your community in some way. So have them reach out to public figures that are in your local area, and oftentimes those people will respond. The next thing, imagine, what would Einstein have tweeted about the theory of relativity? Or what would Custer have tweeted in the war? Or what would Lincoln have tweeted right before the Gettysburg Address? Or what would fill in the blank, right? You all know your content areas, but how can your students imagine what would have happened if they would have had Twitter 15, 20, 100 years ago? And that can be a nice way to put them in the mindset of the actual person. The next one is kind of the same. Tweet a headline for a historic event. What a famous person, character might have said during a certain period of time. So, you know, if we would have had Twitter on something like 9/11, what would the tweets have looked like that day? Or D-Day? Or it can be something really good. The first person that landed on the moon. You know, what would Neil Armstrong have tweeted? So these are all things that you can do, historic events, and they have to tweet a headline as if they're a news reporter. Okay, let's keep moving past that green activity. We'll keep going to detective. So one of the things, actually go back to the green one real quick. I don't want you to do this, but I just want you to see it. If I would have asked you to summarize the last chapter of a book that you read using only 140 characters, how would you have done that? And I really want you to think about the last book you read. And if I would have said summarize that in 140 characters, could you have done it? Now, that leads to our next strategy, which is have your students play detective. So you give them this assignment, and then they have to figure out what their students are reading or what concept that they're describing. You see what I mean? So you have your students play detective. And this can be a lot of fun. And you can do this, again, with all levels and lots of different content areas. But this is a really, really nice strategy. We're going to keep moving. The Twitter It's Your Book. Now, this is a great book written by 2 University of Chicago students about 5 years ago. They summarize 80 works of fiction in 20 tweets or less. So you can see there, I'm waiting for Godot. Still waiting. Trying not to think of this awful, frustrating situational metaphor we found ourselves in, right? Again, how can you have your students tweet a chapter? How could they summarize that? There's all kinds of ways to make this fun and engaging and enjoyable, and not just, okay, write a paragraph about what we learned, right? How can we make it more enjoyable for them? As we keep moving, student leadership, have your students facilitate the discussion, and have your students facilitate the discussion, and you sit back, okay? So if you have a hashtag discussion or a back channel discussion in class, have your students facilitate it and you just follow it. This gives them an idea what it's like to moderate the discussion, etc. So those are quite a few strategies. Now we're at the end here, and again, I'll give you these slides. You'll have these slides, and it's not even close to everything that we've gotten here, which I'll give you the link to in a minute if you want it. But I do want to quickly talk about how to get started with Twitter. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, it's blue. One of the best ways to get Twitter if you're just starting is create an account, obviously, and just find a couple of colleagues that you can tweet back and forth with. And then join a chat. That gives you a real idea because you want to be fluent with it first, right? And again, it's very user friendly. You do it for 30 minutes, you're gonna feel very fluent at it. But give yourself a schedule that you want to post at least once a day or whatever. But just start by yourself so that you're getting used to it. Okay. Another thing that you can do is, and I encourage you to do, is if you're going to start, and this kind of goes a little bit to what Jennifer, you were talking about, etc. Here is the idea of, if we go to the next slide, begin with Twitter 101. Explain to your students what symbols and signs mean. Explain why you're using Twitter, that you're not going to follow them, that you don't care what they put on their own Twitter account. That's their space. But you are going to use it for class. And I think that you have to really go through this and explain it. And as we continue to move, why? Why is it important that they summarize in 140 characters? Because you want them to understand this is really good for your brain. This is really, really good for your mind. How can you use Twitter to communicate with others in school and with the broader audience? And remember, they need to understand this is also a nice way to segue into digital citizenship, that they have to understand that whatever they tweet out there is going out to anyone who chooses to follow it. You're not going to choose to follow it, but anyone that they do engage on Twitter is going to have access to that. So they do want to think about how they express themselves and what they put in there. How can that be beneficial for us as learners? Ask them the question. Before you start telling them these things, ask them the question to come up with. As we keep moving, You want to make sure that you know, let parents know. Let parents know that you have a classroom Twitter account. This is what you're using it for. Many parents will choose to follow just so that they can keep up with you, and that's fine. They can follow you. And then be clear about, you know, what you're going to do, that you're not going to be following students, that you are only going to be, you know, tweeting out class-related stuff, and consider sharing, you know, them with parents if they want to. You can also go in and copy all your tweets out once a week and then keep a record of them so that you always have them on record just to cover yourself as well. Continuing to move, if you could go to the hashtag LBP, I have just tweeted out a little poll. So this is one of the features on Twitter that you will see is, yeah, Christopher, you're right. Jennifer Gonzalez is really good. And by the way, I see your question, Robin. I'm going to get to that in just a second. Okay. So you can also use Twitter for polls. All right. So I've just from my last backpack account tweeted out a question. Do you have any questions? Now, obviously there are, but I just want you to know that that feature is there, that you can all, you know, do like what we did at the start, a quick poll of your audience, and you can do that via Twitter as well. So that's a nice feature. Okay, so to answer your question, and Robin's question is, when a student tweets their takeaway, can all the other students see it? If so, wouldn't some of them copy the other tweets? Yes, so the way that I handle this is they are not allowed to tweet out the same takeaway as anyone else. And remember, because in Twitter everything is time-stamped, I can see who tweeted it first. So I'm going to know who tweeted it first, and I can just go back and say, good try, Jake. You know, I see that Robin already tweeted that. Or, you know what, Chris is always really, really sharp. He's one of the first ones out there tweeting. So, you know, I probably shouldn't follow his tweet and replace it, because I know that the teacher's going to catch up on that. So I just go through and then I have a transcript of everybody that tweeted, so I know who tweeted what. So that's another easy way to do that. Now I see we've got some responses on the poll that are coming through, so that's good. What I'd like you to do, last little thing here as we wrap up, is upcoming webinars. If we keep moving, Mitch, if you can go to the upcoming webinars page. If you are interested in some of these other strategies, if you have found this particular webinar helpful, again, I can only cover so much in a short amount of time, but we are going to talk about photos. We're going to be talking about back channel discussions, video, how we can use those for learning in ways that are maybe a little non-traditional, that people don't oftentimes think about. So slides for today are at this link right here, the next slide. You will see there is a link there for slides. You do want to write that down. Everything will be there for you. It's a bit.ly link, Twitter webinar. So the slides for today, and there's going to be a few slides in there that I did not cover, okay, because of time. But that's great. You'll still have access to that information. So you can take a picture of that or write it down real quick. bit.ly/ZW Twitter webinar. And again, this also will be recorded, so you can come back and get this later if you need to. Going to keep moving. If you are interested, and I have to say this, you know, for my publisher, if you're interested in the book is there, and literally, and I'm not just saying this, guys, there's probably 1,000 different practical hands-on strategies for Twitter, for video, for GPS, how to use GPS in a classroom. So lots of different things in here. If you put in that discount code, you will get 20 to 25% off. So that's a nice thing as well. You can also just pull up the QR code there if you have a QR code reader on your device. So it's just bit.ly/LBP Corwin. Next slide. There are some links there, other resources. Please don't feel like you have to copy those down. Again, you'll get these slides later. But just know that there are some other good slides there. 60 ways to use Twitter in the classroom. Alice Keeler does some really good stuff with Twitter. There's lots of really good people out there to follow. So I think, oh, Alex, I will get to your question in 1 second. I see we got one more question there for anybody who wants to hang out. And finally, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for swinging by. I hope you found this helpful. If so, and you want to throw some Twitter love out there, that would be great. Just to kind of help people understand, because we're all in this together, and I do think that is, I think it's important that we support each other, and that we share stuff that's really, really good. I am assuming you will get emails about the upcoming webinars. If you've signed up for this one, I think you are signed up for the other ones. Mitch can maybe answer that a little bit better than I can. Alex, one quick thing before we turn it back over to Mitch. Alex asks on Twitter, what if all your students don't have Twitter or don't use it? Well, this is one of those things where you want to have Twitter as an option. Okay, it is the only way to do things. So I often put anything that I do on Twitter, I also put on my learning management. So I use Edmodo, Google Classroom, Schoology. Every school, probably has their own LMS. And in many cases, you can connect those. So anything I automatically goes to my blog as well. So it automatically goes to my LMS. And I don't have to enter it into my blog, enter it into my LMS, enter it on Twitter. I can do all that automatically. And so, Alex, I think you bring up a very good point. And not every student has Twitter, nor do they want it, and that's completely okay. This is just another option for them. And you can also pair them up.
Even if they don't.
Yep, Mitch.
So yeah, even if they don't have Twitter, they can still go to www.twitter.com hashtag, and they can see what people are posting. They just can't post.
Yeah. Yep. So lots of different things to do. Mitch, do you have any announcements? I'm going to put one more quick poll up real quick on Twitter with the hashtag, so it'll be up in about 20 seconds. So if you don't mind answering that. But again, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for the really good work that you do in schools. I know that that's really important. If you want to contact me directly, just go to lastbackpack.com. You can find me on there, lastbackpack.com, and then feel free to email me or write me, and I always try to answer as quickly as possible, usually within 48 hours, unless I'm on a plane somewhere. So.
Well, yeah, your hours are a little bit off ours. I mean, you're like 12 hours behind us or ahead of us, aren't you?
Yes.
I'm on the East Coast, so it's 9:00 p.m. It must be what, 8:00 a.m. or 10:00 a.m. where you are?
10:00 a.m. here. Yeah.
And it's tomorrow.
It is. It's in the future right now.
So yeah. Well, thank you. And
it looks like a beautiful day outside, though. So you guys got a lot to look forward to.
So everybody who signed up for this webinar will also be getting the emails about the next webinars and the URLs for them. And we will also be posting the archive, and we'll post the slides as well. So if you didn't get the URL, you'll be able to go to our website in a couple of days, and you'll be able to download the slides that way as well. And you could tweet the URL as well, And so anybody who's following the hashtag LBP could click on the link. Is another way and make people use Twitter. So yeah. Well, Zachary, thank you again. Looking forward to the next 3 in the series.
Yeah. If I get at least 5 votes on the poll I just put up, I'll throw the link up on Twitter as well. How about that? Ha! Ha!
Oh. Do I count?
I've got 3 right now.
There we go. I see 4. Okay. All right. So it's actually after the hour, and people are still on. So you must have been really fascinating. So it's again, and we'll see you in about a month. I'll be back on in about a week and a half on on March 9th with 2 webinars. And Zach, I'll let you go and have a great day. Everybody in the U.S., have a good evening, and wherever you are in the world, have a great rest of the day. So I'm signing off. This is Mitch Weisberg for Edchat Interactive, and I'll see you in a week or 2. Bye.